This is a News 1130 special report.
For half a century, Canada was an agent of change, diplomacy, and peace in the world, and it can be again. Former Prime Minister Joe Clark makes that case in a new book entitled How We Lead Canada in a Century of Change. News 1130's John Ackerman spoke with the retired statesman ahead of a public appearance tomorrow night.
You've said that you've come close to calling the book Leading from Beside. How can Canada lead from beside in this new international system?
In a sense, that's what we have always done. The phrase hadn't been created, but we're not a huge power, and we have been able to add our influence from the side of the table more often than at the head of the table. And this is a world in which we're not going to have superpowers anymore. And so the quality that is required is not simply sort of naked power, whether it's military or economic. It also is this capacity to encourage discussion, at which we're very good. But if you look back at some of the great accomplishments in which Canada's been involved, I was fortunate enough to be foreign minister during the fight against apartheid. We played an important role, but the most important role was played by South Africans. Nonetheless, we were able to identify a niche and be very effective there. And I think that's going to be even more the case in the future.
This is a News 1130 special report.
A former prime minister says Canada needs to reassert its place on the global stage or risk being left behind in a world that is changing more than ever. In his new book, How We Lead Canada in a Century of Change, Joe Clark makes the case that Ottawa needs to focus as much on diplomacy as it does on trade. News 1130's John Ackerman sat down with Clark ahead of a public appearance tomorrow night.
The name of the book is How We Lead, and it sort of looks at how we've led and how we can lead in the future. And I guess your central argument is that we're missing an opportunity here at a time when the world is going through some fundamental changes.
Yes, and if you look back at Canada's great success right after the Second World War, it was because we had very talented people, real assets we could apply, and the world suddenly needed someone who was not a superpower, an old power. And we started things then that we continued really for 60 years. There's another new world now created by the combination of the end of the Cold War, which means that conflict in the world is much less driven by ideology and is much more due to a conflict among cultures. And the other major change has been the internet, which means there are so many new players, not just nation states anymore, but also organizations like Greenpeace, which, for example, has a greater influence, I think, on public policy than a number of states do, or the Gates Foundation, which is highly innovative. And there is a capacity and a need for countries that are good at drawing others together, that can encourage their respect and cooperation, to become more active in that world. I think it can make Canada, in fact, more influential in the future than we have been in the past.
Clark will be speaking tomorrow night at Capilano University in North Vancouver.